Hello everyone and welcome back to another Stately Office Hours. We weren't here last week, but we are back this week. This is where we talk to you about what we've been up to at Stately and working on XState. We answer your questions and get your feedback, and we got some good demos for you today. First of all, we wanted to start out by saying what we think is very important, and that is that we stand in solidarity with Ukraine against Putin's war. And it can be difficult to feeling fairly helpless and far away from those of you in Ukraine. And it's hard to know what exactly to do to help, but there are many ways that those of us at a distance can help. And one of the ways you can do is look at this URL for how-to-help-ukraine-now.super.site, and there's a huge number of things that you can do on there. There's also a really great list of resources and charities and organizations working with people in Ukraine on the ground, and that is at twitter.com/VLSDLLV/status. I'm not going to read all those numbers, that's not helpful. We will put the links in the notes below. And there's also a really great article on Smashing Magazine written by Vitaly, and that contains a lot of resources and further URLs. We would recommend checking that out. So let's get into our team intros. We do this every week, a bit of a sort of skid into the next section there. I'm Laura Kalbag. I do developer and designer relations for Stately. David?
I'm David Khorshid, the founder of Stately, creator of XState.
Farzad?
I'm Farzad, and I'm an engineer in Stately.
Matthias? Anderist?
I'm a regular TypeScript types developer at Stately.
And Matt?
I'm Matt, developer at Stately. Can't think of anything funny to say.
Yeah,
you're
one of those weeks.
You're the TypeScript advocate, really.
TypeScript guy, yeah.
What does Vespers call you, Matt?
The Rodney Mullen of TypeScript. He tweeted that out once, and I'm gonna run off that for the rest of my life.
Right. Both Matthias and Matt are just TypeScript wizards. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, Matthias is the brain, I'm the voice.
So, well, let's get that voice in action. Matt, do you want to tell us what you've been working on this week?
Yeah, sounds good. Damn, what a segue that was. That was skillful. Right. So you should be able to see my screen now. And what we've been working on is we have shipped a brand new command line interface for you to use the type gen features of TypeScript with. This is called XState CLI. And what I'm going to do is show you how to attach this to your repo and how to set up all the command line scripts so that it runs kind of in the background so you don't even notice it and you get an amazing experience even if you're not using VS Code. So what we're going to do is we are inside a repository which is basically a Next app. So we've got our sort of Next page here. It's all set up for TypeScript. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in this package.json. So we've got our dependencies, which is Next React, and we've got XState already here. We've also got Prettier already here, which will come in useful later. So what we're going to do is we have this create machine here. And this machine is super, it's very, very basic at the moment. But let's say that we wanted to add TS types to it. Now, if we were in the VS Code extension, this would just work out of the box. But with this CLI, we've got to do a little bit more work. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some scripts here, or add some packages. We're going to say yarn add the XState CLI, and we're also going to add concurrently as well. That's going to come in useful later. Now, XState CLI, I just love that. Where's it gone? Oh, I can't find it, but I love the fact that we've got our little XState CLI thing. I don't know, just typing that makes me so happy. It goes into our package.json here, and we can now add a script which will add the type gen to our machines. So we're going to say XState type gen. And we're going to make this so it goes XState type gen, and we're going to pass it a glob. And this glob is going to be source, and then a couple of wildcards, and then .ts. And we can now run this with yarn XState type gen. What that's going to do is it's going to go through machine.ts and hello.ts, which is another TS file we have here. And lo and behold, it added this little as imports thing here, and it also generated the type gen. So if I do that again, if I just remove this, and now if I run type gen down here, just because I want the moment when it appears, on screen, boom, there it goes. Lovely. So this is pretty cool, but this also is a bit weak because we can't, if I change something here, if I add another state 2, whatever, then I need to run this again in order to be able to, see my type gen update. Another state 2 is now in here. So you can actually run this as a watch command. What this is going to do is it's going to watch all the relevant files, and when you change something, we now change this to another state 3, for instance, then it's going to update to another state 3 inside here. Pretty cool. And this also means that when you get rid of TS types 2, then it deletes the type gen file. And when you add it back, TS types, it's just like you're in VS Code, basically. So on it goes. So again, this is pretty cool, but this isn't really ideal for for a developer experience, because a developer really just wants to run yarn dev, and it will just run everything essentially. So the way that we get around that, or the way that we work it all out, is we can wrap our next dev command, which is kind of like the open it up in localhost 3000 command if you've not used next before. And we're going to say next dev, just wrap it in some quotes, and we're going to run it with concurrently here. So concurrently next dev, and then we're going to add yarn XState typegen -- watch, which is the command that we ran earlier. So what concurrently does is it runs 2 scripts concurrently, or more scripts concurrently. And when we now run yarn dev, we're going to get, first of all, our styles.global is not defined, is it? Let me just go in there and delete that. But as you can see, there are 2 scripts running. So this is the first script, this 0, and this is the second script, which is the watch. And you can now add in another state 4, for instance, and it will just work. So there you go. So another state 4 pops up. Now, there's also one other issue here. Well, this is maybe not an issue. It kind of depends on your preference, basically. But when you have automatically generated stuff here, like all this code gen, what I like to do is I like to git ignore it. I like to, because I don't want to really see this stuff in PRs and stuff. I don't really want to have it cluttering up my view of the repo, really. So what I like to do is I like to git ignore it. And here we're going to go wildcard.typegen.ts. And this means that the file gets git ignored, right? So it won't go into our PRs or anything. But there's an issue here, which is when someone first clones the repo, this typegen file is not going to be there, and you're going to get this weird type error here. So the way that I like to get around this is we can actually run XState typegen on a post-install script. That means that the first time that anyone clones the repo, for instance, if I just stop all the watch tasks like this, you can see the error that they'd see, which is they cannot find module machine.typegen, and this is pretty confusing. Whereas if they just run yarn, now it's just going to generate all the files that it needs to right when the first user opens the repository. So that means that they don't need to do anything extra. They can just run yarn and yarn dev, and boom, everything works. Everything just sits nicely. This obviously works in any IDE. It works in any environment that runs TypeScript. And we do have a peer dependency on Prettier at the moment. So you'll need to make sure that you have Prettier installed in your project. But that's the CLI as it stands right now. We've got XState typegen, we've got a watch command, and this is our recommended setup for installing it into your repository. And that, I think, is the end of my demo.
Very nice. A very complete demo as well. That was fabulous. Yeah. And we had a lot of people requesting the CLI. So it's really great that you got to that very quickly as well.
Yeah, it's nice. It really wasn't that much work, actually, because most of the work was just figuring out figuring out how to package it, figuring out the stuff that was already in the VS Code extension. So it's been really fun, actually, to work on it.
No, and the fact that you've got that recommended setup so that folks can basically just get everyone else in the team on board very quickly as well.
Exactly. You can install it, and no one in your team even needs to know it's there until they just see its effects. So it's really nice.
It's a guerrilla development going on there.
I've done that a few times. Just install someone, no one will notice. It's fine.
Does anyone else have anything that they wanted to share that they've been working on this week?
Not for me, but I just wanted to mention with Matt's demo of the CLI, two things. First of all, he wrote a blog post, so please read the blog post.
Yes.
And yeah,
I will get
just
the URL for that.
More information on the CLI. And the second thing, which is pretty exciting, like one of the main reasons we have the CLI is because we feel that everyone should be able to use these tools, like regardless of if you're using VS Code or Eclipse. I don't know if people are using Eclipse with XState or JetBrains, IntelliJ, or any other IDE. So yeah, we want this CLI to give you that same capability of having type gen, but also be the basis for a lot of other things that we want to add. So please feel free to make your suggestions either in the Discord or the GitHub, because we definitely want to build this CLI to be like fully featured. With type gen and more. So like one example idea, a lot of people have been asking, like we want to programmatically generate visualizations of our state machines. That would be something that would be in the CLI's territory. So yeah.
Fantastic. If you want to join our Discord, she says trying to find, there we go, discord.gg/xstate, and that's a great place to make your suggestions. And I guess for about CLI related requests, we would want people to put that in the XState repository, wouldn't we, in the issues there or discussions there?
There's actually an open source repository that you can visit, because the CLI is open source, which is a different one. It's actually stately.ai/XState tools. XState tools is where the VS Code extension lives. It's where the parser now lives. We used to have like a separate XState parser repo. It now all lives in there, which is really nice. And it means that you can actually just go diving into the code now. It's all mono repoed up, turbo repoed up as well. And yeah, it's looking quite nice.
Fantastic. If you have any questions right now, feel free to ask us in the YouTube comments, or you can tweet us directly responding to the live stream tweet, or just at us at @StatelyAI, or jump into our office hours channel on the Discord. I'm just having a look right now. It's a pretty quiet Friday, I have to say.
I just got a message from a former colleague of mine, hi Taylor, that he's not a fan of VS Code. He's like too much into Vim and stuff. And he was really excited about the CLI that Matt worked on, because he just messaged me that he's going to work on a Vim plugin for it.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's so good. I think just to open up the discussion on the CLI a bit more, like as David was saying, XState is starting to put its, or Stately is starting to put its tendrils into more and more of like places where your code is, So we've got like VS Code now. We now have a CLI which can sit either in your terminal, or it can be on your CI too. So like the potential for like CI related things, especially where you're like, let's say generating GitHub artifacts of all of the GitHub action artifacts, where you can download images of all the machines in your repository or something. Like there's just so much we can start doing now. It's very exciting.
So technically now this is possible to run the CLI in the CI and write a sort of generator for the visualization that parses through your code in the PR and generates the visualization for it right in the GitHub description, for example.
Yeah, there certainly is that potential. Like if you were to make like a GitHub action, let's say, and the CLI could return some like standard outs, let's say, where it was like, I don't know, an ASCII description of all the stuff, and then you could put that in GitHub. Like, oh, it's just so many things, yeah. And all this is open source as well, so you just clone it, try it out. It's quite simple, the code actually, when it comes to just like the basic CLI. It's just a commander app essentially, so you can go crazy.
Yep. And also important to note that this will eventually tie into the rest of our tools too, like the editor and the registry. Just imagine being able to say, hey, I want this machine from the registry, and like installing it just like you would npm install something using the CLI. So ideas like this are ideas that we want to hear. So yeah, just let us know.
Totally.
I was laughing earlier because of the CLI and CI. We can get quite deep into the acronyms, and I know that a lot of these terms, we actually know the acronyms better than we do the long form themselves. But let's, just to be completely clear with anyone who's unsure, when we're talking about CLI, we're talking about command line interface. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
And CI, continuous integration. Yes. Okay. Top points for Laura this week. And yeah, we just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page with the acronyms that we're using. So anybody else have anything that they want to talk about? We do want to mention that next week on the 10th of March, I believe, David, you are doing a Q&A on the Reactiflux Discord.
Yeah, I am. So if you all don't know, Reactiflux is a huge React and, well, Redux community. I think that's why they call it Reactiflux. And yeah, there's like thousands and thousands of people on there. So yeah, I will be doing a Q&A there. I was asked to, like, right when we release a stately editor, but you could ask anything about XState, the stately tools we're working on. I know probably a few of us here are also going to jump into the Q&A because hopefully there will be a ton of questions and hopefully we'll be able to answer them all for you. So yeah, looking forward to it.
So that URL that I'm not going to read out is specific to the Discord event. And I guess just the first part of it is for the Discord itself. So you'd recommend the Reactiflux Discord? Worth joining?
If that is your interest, I know a lot of people have a lot of Discords that they're in. And I would say Reactiflux is great if you need help with React or React-related tools.
Fantastic. Oh, I will look forward to the Q&A then. Erik says, just wanted to thank the team today. Sometimes I feel bad how many questions I ask. Haha. Is there a way to directly support the Stately team to show thanks? Well, those words are great support, as it is, Erik. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would just also add, just continue to talk to your teammates about the tools we're building, and also please give us feedback. I think that the number one thing we need right now is just how you're using XState in your organization or company or your side projects, and how we could help you just be as efficient as possible. And what cool features you want to.
Yeah. Tom asks, do you have any thoughts about the expansion and complexity around the state machine and state generics? They make it quite a bit more difficult to extend XState in a type-safe way.
Yeah, so we have definitely added a little bit too much generics at the time just to solve the current problems. I think like state machine actually sits at 7. Which of course is a little bit unwieldy to manage, and because of that, for example, like this PR was huge in touching a lot of stuff in the repository, because we just had to adjust those places that were using those and stuff. But like the true question would be, what kind of extensibility and complexity are we talking about? Because at least at the moment, we are trying to shift towards this inference way of declaring, inference-based way of declaring generics, which is basically through like a config schema. And this is actually trying to address this very issue in a way. It looks a little bit iffy because it's more unusual to like standard TypeScript code, but it actually allows us to like have partial inference in a way, because we, for example, support like context and events, and actually like your machine can be designed in a way that it doesn't even accept any events. So even T event is in a way optional, because like the machine could transition through a bunch of steps driven by some children, actors, and like timers and whatever. So like from the public perspective, it doesn't even have to accept any events. So even like the T event is optional. But unfortunately, TypeScript doesn't allow us to like provide partial to use partial inference, because as soon as you start providing any generics, then then all like empty slots will be just defaulted to like default values, and we can't work with that because we'd like for the other stuff to be inferred from the config object, and especially for the typegen stuff and all of this. So it gets a little bit complicated. We have some plan to experiment with like downsizing the list in V5, but like one of the considerations to that is also to like understanding better trade-offs in relation to like variance, function variance, because generics can impact like assignability rules between like different machines types, and since like those machines have to often like work in tandem with other machines, this might be important for us. So there is room for exploration. We have definitely chosen the current way, partially to like overcome the partial inference problem, or rather like lack of thereof, and also to avoid breaking changes, because like in the current code bases you can for sure like find a lot of create machine calls that use those generics, so we just couldn't break that. So we had to leave them in place. But yeah, like if you have any like questions and like what kind of complexity and also like extensibility in relation to those things you have, then just like open issue and we can discuss. Because like I definitely feel the point for myself to even like work with that within the code base. But like understanding the pains of our users is a different like story. I'm also using XState, of course, but everybody has different experience, so we just need to hash it out.
There's some interesting things we can. Oh, sorry, David, you go.
Oh no, I just want to mention that one of our biggest next priorities, and something that Mateusz has actually done a lot of work on recently, is XState version 5. So we are basically feature freezing version 4, obviously still maintaining it, fixing critical bugs, etc. But our full focus is on version 5 in terms of open source. And there we hope to do all the breaking changes necessary, minimal of course, but like basically all the breaking changes to make it a much better typing experience and developer experience, etc.
Yep, Mateusz is living his best life right now, just pure open source V5 stuff. It's great.
Yeah, and of course we will let you know as soon as we have more to tell you about V5. Now, I did have something else. It has fallen out of my brain. Oh yes, some folks have shared their machines with us this week, and it's been really great. If you have any machines that you've built using just plain XState or using the visualizer or using the editor, we would love it if you could share them with us, because it's really useful to have machines to share with other folks, particularly those who are new to state machines and state charts, and help them understand how people model different situations and different use cases. And I think it's Joshua made this fantastic XState snake game, which was such a great example, and I'll share the link for that in the notes below this video. But if you do have any machines like that you want to show off, we want to be able to appreciate your work as well. Any more? Anything else that anyone wants to mention this week? Otherwise, I will wrap us up.
Yeah, Ivan mentioned, or Ivan mentioned, an awesome idea, XState CLI migrate. Yes, this is definitely an example of something that we would want to do. So yeah, just keep those feature requests coming. There's so many possibilities now that we have a CLI, so super exciting. Oops.
Oh, Erik asks, I think at the end of December, it was mentioned on the stream that there will be updates regarding form management within XState. Any updates there? Any updates on XState forms?
Yeah, so we're still talking about it. Actually, Farzad and I had a meeting about it just the other day or a few days ago. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here in terms of like do we want XState form to be a full-featured form library like Formic or Final Form? And the short answer is no. We do want to be unopinionated and not, force like form opinions, just because there's so many different use cases with forms. And instead, we want to provide building blocks for you to easily integrate forms with XState for making things like wizard forms, multi-step forms, custom validation and submission logic, etc. Yeah, also, that's a good place to mention too that I'm going to be, and me and a couple others from the team are going to be at Reactathon, and that's happening. I actually don't know the exact dates, but we will be at Reactathon, and me and Erik Rasmussen, who works at Centered, we're going to be giving a dual workshop on creating multi-step forms with XState. And
that's on Tuesday, the 3rd of May.
Thank you so much. Yes, Tuesday, May 3rd. So yeah, if you want to learn more about forms and XState and how those two could work together, and this workshop is going to go from the very basics of XState all the way to, spawning and invoking actors and all of that. So it's going to be a really fun workshop. But if you want to learn more about that, then definitely sign up for this workshop. And we hope to see you in San Francisco at Reactathon.
And there couldn't be two better people to be learning from, with you and Erik, with Erik's background in forms as well.
Absolutely.
Well, fantastic. It has been a short and sweet one, which is how we like it. And we will look forward to catching up with you all next week, where we will have more exciting updates to share with you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to join our Discord and ask them on the Office Hours channel or any of the other channels. You can tweet us at Stately AI, or if you leave any comments on the video on YouTube, I will also make sure that we get those included in next week's stream. So it'll be great to see you all again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.